Hi there, my name is Veronica Whitley. I'm a Homeworks by Precept consultant and homeschool mom here in Texas. Today, we're going to take a look inside of the 5th edition of Cultural Geography. This course is designed to encourage our children to appreciate the diversity of cultures, people, and landforms in the world that God has created. And hopefully by the end of this course, our children will understand through this study the desperate need for people from all tribes, tongues, and nations to know the truth of the gospel as they gain an interest in different people and lands around the world. Let's take a look inside. Let's start with the Teacher's Editions. There are 2 parts to the Teacher's Edition. Part 1 will cover Units 1 through 4 and Chapters 1 through 13. Part 2 will cover Units 5 through 8 and Chapters 14 through 24. Let's start by taking a look at Part 1. We'll start with the table of contents. You'll see some introductory information and then the different units and chapters listed. Part 1 of the Teacher's Edition will cover Units 1, 2, 3, and 4. Units 5 through 8 are included in the table of contents, but will be covered in Part 2. And then at the bottom, we have the glossary, the index, and the photo credits in the back of both of the Teacher's Editions. Maps are essential to a geography course, so this page is going to be an important resource as it lists all of the physical and political maps used in the course and the page numbers where they can be found in the student and the Teacher's Editions. This section of information to the teacher is going to be very helpful, especially if you've used a previous edition of Cultural Geography. This will help you to see what's new in this edition. You'll also want to look at the section of homeschool ideas that will give you some suggestions for adjusting or accommodating lessons designed for a classroom to be used in a homeschool setting, and a section on internet resources. Our worldview influences the cultures that we produce. These pages will introduce and explain the 5 biblical worldview themes that are being implemented and incorporated throughout this course: religion, institutions, aesthetics, social groups, and physical environment. At the bottom of each box, you'll see a gray band with the different chapters and the implementation of each worldview theme. Take a look at the academic rigor pages to help you understand what you want your children to learn, how you can help them learn and meet those objectives, and then some tips on how to evaluate and assess their learning and progress throughout the course. Here we have a world map, the first of many that you'll see throughout this course. Here we have the lesson plan overview for Part 1 of the Teacher's Edition. This lesson plan overview will cover Units 1 through 4 and Chapters 1 through 13. You'll see the unit and chapter titles. In the first column, you'll see the lesson numbers, and then you have the number of days that you'll spend on each lesson. While you'll notice that some lessons are intended to be taught in just one day, many of the lessons are intended to be covered over the course of 2 days. And then you'll see the pages in the Teacher's Edition, the activities that you'll assign in your child's activity manual. In the content objectives column, you'll notice that each chapter is divided into 3 sections: physical geography, human geography, and interactions of people and places. This is also where you'll find the chapter review and test. Each unit will open with the number of the unit and the title, and after the first unit, you'll see a geodata activity on the opening pages of the unit in your Teacher's Edition. As we look at each chapter, you'll notice in the Teacher's Edition a smaller version of your child's textbook pages with your teaching notes included in the margins. You'll start with the chapter question, which will be the main focus or theme of this chapter. Next, you'll see the chapter objectives. The chapter objectives correspond to the big ideas on the opening page of each chapter in your child's student textbook. Next, there's a section for resources. As a homeschool parent, your resources will be located in your parent account on the Homeschool Hub. Next will be the activities that you'll assign. These can be found in your child's activities manual and will be further explained later on in the margins. Each lesson will begin with an essential question. Again, this is the focus of this particular section or lesson. And then you'll see the lesson objectives. The lessons in cultural geography follow the steps of the teaching cycle: engage, instruct, apply, and assess. In the engage portion of the teaching cycle, you will pull from your child's previous knowledge of the topic and generate interest in the upcoming lesson. In the instruct step of the teaching cycle, you will use the information in the margins of the teacher's edition to teach these lessons to your child. The apply section of the teaching cycle is your child's opportunity to practice what they have learned. Typically, you will use the apply step of the teaching cycle to assign the activities for that section in your child's activities manual. Then lastly, we have the assess step of the teaching cycle. At the end of each section, there will be a box with section review questions. These will be helpful in gauging your child's understanding so far in the chapter. The answers to the section review questions can be found under the Assess title in the margin of your teacher's edition. At the end of each chapter, you'll find a chapter review. The chapter review will summarize the themes or big ideas of the chapter. It will also include a list of terms to know. These terms can be found in bold print throughout the chapter in your child's student textbook. The questions will be divided into 4 sections: making connections, developing geography skills, thinking critically, and living in God's Word. Just like with the section review questions, the answers to the chapter review can be found in the margins of the teacher's edition. At the end of the teacher's edition, you'll find a glossary. The glossary will include all of the terms to know from your child's chapter reviews. And then following the glossary, we have an index organized alphabetically of all of the cultures, regions, people, religions found throughout this course. Here we have a section of photo credits. And then lastly, we have a page explaining the gospel. Part 2 of the teacher's edition will include chapters 5 through 8 and chapters 14 through 24. Just like part 1, you'll see the table of contents including all 8 units, a reference list for all of the maps in alphabetical order with all of the page numbers. We have the biblical worldview shaping pages, academic rigor, the world map, and the lesson plan overview for units 5 through 8. Again, you'll see the lessons listed beginning with lesson 54 in chapter 14. You have the days that are intended to be spent teaching each lesson. And again, sometimes you'll see one day, and sometimes you'll see multiple days. Next, you have the teacher's edition pages and the assigned activities. In the last column, you'll find the content objectives for each lesson. Again, we have the unit opener with the unit and title and the Geodata activity assignment. Again, you'll see the chapter opener with the chapter question and the chapter objectives. And again, any resources that you may need for these lessons can be found on the Homeschool Hub. Occasionally, you'll find a highlighted section of background information. This can be for your benefit as the teacher, or you can share this information with your student to add to the lesson. Throughout this course, you'll occasionally see a yellow box labeled Differentiated Instruction. The suggestions in these boxes will fall into 3 different categories. ELL is for English language learners, or students for whom English is not their first language. It will offer suggestions or accommodations for teaching these lessons. Another category of differentiated instruction will be enrichment. In these boxes, you'll find suggestions for those students who have already mastered the content of the lesson and need an additional challenge. The third category of differentiated instruction will be targeted reinforcement. These suggestions may benefit the child who is struggling with the reading assignments, or it may offer suggestions for activities to benefit different learning styles. No matter what your child's preferred learning style may be, changing it up and offering activities that are geared or aimed towards other learning styles will only be a benefit to your student. Throughout the course, you'll see 3 different features. The Global Impact feature will introduce your student to issues or topics that are geographically specific, but may have consequences or impacts beyond the areas of the world being studied. Next is a case study. The case studies introduce students to interesting geographic information and also provide review questions to help with understanding. The Beliefs feature will introduce and examine different religions and religious concepts throughout the world. At the end of the Teacher's Edition is a glossary with important vocabulary words, a topical index, photo credits, and a page explaining the gospel. Next, let's take a look inside of the student textbook. The Student Edition is where your child will receive the majority of their information throughout this course. There is a note in the Teacher's Edition that assumes that the selections in the textbook are being assigned as outside reading for each lesson. Just like the Teacher's Edition, we start with the table of contents, and then there's a page that references all of the different maps that your child will find within the textbook, along with the page numbers where they can be found. Then we have a section of several pages explaining and highlighting the different features of the student textbook. The world map and the opening of the first unit. Here in Chapter 2, you'll see the title of the chapter, the section titles and page numbers, and then the themes or the big ideas for this chapter. Each chapter is broken down into 3 sections: physical geography, human geography, and interactions. In the physical geography section, your child will interact with maps and learn about physical landforms, bodies of water, climates, and resources in this section of the world. The human geography section will look at governments, economies, demographics, culture, diversity, and religion. And then the interactions of people and places will look at people's interactions with the environment, different environmental issues, and proposed solutions in this area of the world. Each section will begin with guiding questions. The guiding questions will give your child an idea of the themes that they need to be focusing on in this particular section. Under the section title, you'll see the essential question highlighted. At the end of each section, you'll see a box with section review questions. These questions are designed to help your student remember what they have learned so far. The answers to these questions can be found in the margins of your Teacher's Edition. Throughout the student textbook, you'll see photographs of different areas of the world. You'll also see illustrations, charts, visual organizers, graphs, pie charts, maps, and infographics that will help your child to visualize the information and recall it as they study. Throughout the chapters, you'll see timelines that will help put the major events of these countries into a larger perspective. You'll see the same features, case studies, and their questions. The Global Impact box will introduce students to a geographically specific topic or issue that can have far-reaching consequences across the world. And the Beliefs feature will introduce your student to different religions, religious practices, and concepts in different regions of the world. At the end of the chapter, you'll find the chapter review. This page is designed to help your child study for the upcoming chapter test and recall what they have learned. You'll find a summary of the key concepts Corresponding to the big ideas at the beginning of the chapter, the terms to know will be the highlighted bold print words from their chapter reading, and then the 4 sections of questions in the chapter review: making connections, developing geography skills, thinking critically, and living in God's world. The answers to the chapter review questions are found in your teacher's edition in the margin notes. At the end of the student textbook, you'll find a glossary. All of the bold print words that were found in the reading assignments of the chapters in the student text can be found back here, along with their definitions. Next is an index arranged alphabetically with page numbers. And then lastly, a section on photo credits. Next, let's look at the activities manual and the activities answer key. The pages in the activity manual were designed to help your child review what they have learned. In addition to chapter reviews to help them study for their chapter tests, the student activities include projects, primary source reading selections, as well as map projects. The student activities manual will be the bulk of your child's daily assignments. It starts with a table of contents listing the unit, the chapter, and each of the activities as well as their page numbers. The pages in the activities manual will allow your child to recall and review the concepts that they have learned in their daily lessons. Maps are an important feature of a course on geography. So there will be plenty of opportunities for them to interact with different types of maps throughout the student activities book. They will also learn to interact with and analyze primary source material through some of the reading selections and questions. In addition to the chapter review pages in the student textbook, there will be additional chapter reviews in the activities manual, giving extra opportunities to study and practice for the upcoming chapter test. One feature that I always love to point out in the activities manual is the color coding. You'll see that these bands of color on the top of the pages in the activities manual will match up with the chapter that it corresponds to in the student textbook. So you'll see that chapter 5, all of the activities for chapter 5 are purple. And then once you get to chapter 6, the color turns to yellow, just like in the student textbook. The answers to the section review and chapter review questions in the student textbook are found in the margins of the teacher's edition. The answers to the activities pages are in a separate answer key. Here we have the table of contents, again listing the units and chapters along with each activity. You'll notice that the answers are provided for you for the different questions, and on the chapter review pages, the page numbers of the correct answers are also provided to further assist your child in studying and preparing for their chapter test. And then lastly, the assessments and the assessment answer key packets. In cultural geography, there are 24 chapters and 24 chapter tests contained in the assessments packet. The answer key for the assessments will also provide the page numbers in the student textbook where the correct answer is located.